afternoon, everybody. If you haven't met me already, I'm Babs Wise, and I'm in the Office of Undergraduate Scholars and Fellows. And I'll be the one, if you decide to apply for a Marshall, that you'll work with a lot, along with my colleagues Jane Morris over here, Bevan Ty, and Alex Hardamay back here. We are sort of the Marshall Scholarship team, and we're really excited today because we have brought Mary Denyer all the way from London, or just outside London, actually, to talk to us about what the Marshall Scholarship is and what it is to study in the UK. All right. We also have our two 2019 Marshall Scholars with us, Sean McDermott and Julie Moody. And so they will share a little bit about their experience applying. I think you'll want to hear all of this. We will have some later sessions about actually how you apply it to, because there is a process. We're going to actually publish the actual timeline on March 1st, God willing. And you'll have all kinds of time with us to learn more about that. But in the meantime, it's important to learn about this particular scholarship. It's a great opportunity.
Okay, thanks, Bab. Thank you very much for welcoming me and letting me come and speak to you about Marshall Scholarships, which are definitely the best scholarships in the world. This is a word cloud that I put together from a whole load of reviews that testimonies from recent scholars around Marshall. I'm pleased to see that University and Marshall and UK are prominent in this. I'm going to play this film to start. This is a propaganda film, but it's a good propaganda film. So as you can tell, the sun always shines in the UK. And everything moves really quickly and flashy. No. So why go to the UK? I'm going to start there because that's what Marshall is about. Marshall is a British government scholarship funded by the British government, originally as a thank you for the Marshall Plan. All of you, of course, know what the Marshall Plan is. And if you don't, go Google it. And was set up by an act of government, so it is actually enshrined in law in the UK. And as I said, originally as a thank you, now as part of the soft power initiatives from our equivalent at the State Department. And it is the only British government scholarship for Americans. It is also the only scholarship that will allow you to study at any British university for any subject at graduate level. So why wouldn't you? This is more propaganda about the UK. We like our propaganda, but it's all good. So 4 out of the top 10 universities in the world are located in the UK. We obviously conduct cutting-edge research and employ innovative teaching methods, and studying abroad, wherever you study abroad, is a life-changing experience. I had the opportunity of studying at the University of South Florida. I've told this joke several times today, but I did Sunbathing 101, Lying by the Pool 101. It was a tough class. Here are some of our alumni. We have 2 Supreme Court justices. I'd ask you to guess which ones they are, but their names are on the slide, so I can't do that. We have entrepreneurs, innovators. This guy invented LinkedIn and PayPal. We have a current scholar who is an award-winning novelist. And we have an astronaut, and she's currently on the International Space Center. So I know an astronaut. That's cooler than anything else. But yeah, so, you know, our alumni are doing all kinds of things all over the US, all over the world, and making a difference in the world in many different ways. And we have 2,000 alumni, and when you become a Marshall Scholar, you become part of that alumni group. This is at the British Embassy, and this guy here is the British ambassador.
And we have some students in this.
Yeah, you could spot the Duke students. They're actually all pretty much in one space, that's probably why. So the history, I've already said that it was established by an act. This is one of the first classes of Marshall Scholars. In here, this guy here's name is John J. Iselin. And again, study your revolutionary history to find out who John Jay originally was. And the first class of, well, from the beginning, Marshall was integrated, both girls, men and women. We have, there were 12, you can see. It's unusual for the 1950s to have women. We selected an African-American very early on. I didn't, I wasn't alive, but the people that were around in the 50s and 60s. And in fact, interestingly, the first African-American scholar's daughter also won a Marshall Scholarship. So here's some eligibility criteria. First of all, you have to be a US citizen. You can be, there was a question asked earlier before the session, but you can be a dual citizen, but you do have to be a US citizen. You need a GPA of 3.7 on your undergraduate. You can't have a 3.68. We don't round. It has to be a 3.7 minimum. You need to hold your undergraduate degree from an accredited 4-year US institution. Well, hopefully all of you here are planning on doing that. If not, you're probably in the wrong place. You need to have graduated after April 2017, and for the 2020 competition before September 2020. And you can't have already studied for a degree in the UK. So you can have done study abroad in the UK, providing you didn't receive a degree. I will be taking questions afterwards as well. You can apply in the region where your permanent home address is, or in the region that your school is in. So if you're applying in the region your school is, you're applying in the Atlanta region, and we have a representative of the Atlanta region here. All our regions are based around the consular regions, the British consular regions, and the British Consul Generals sit on our committees across the regions. Obviously, the British ambassador doesn't sit on our regional committee in Washington, but a senior representative of the embassy does. So the application components, there is a basic form that has short questions, and then there's a whole load of essays. You need a transcript. You need a university endorsement, so you have to be nice to the people that were introduced at the beginning, otherwise you won't get one of those. And you need 4 letters of recommendation. And later when I ask the scholars-elect to come up and have a chat, they can give you an ideas about how they thought about their recommendations and how they thought about their application. But the transcript is important from the point of view of us seeing your GPA and your grades. If you are doing the application, please don't upload your unofficial transcript. Please upload your official one. Even if it does say, even if you're photocopying and it comes up with unofficial, better than the one that you just get a download off the machine that we can't really read. And the letters of a recommendation, I would start, it would help if it was spelled correctly. I didn't do this, not my fault, but I need to tell Josh there's a spell typo on the on the thing. However, when you're thinking about recommenders, you know, it's a good thing to start thinking about early on and not just for Marshall. So one of the things I'm going to say, we have 1,000 applications for just under 50 scholarships. So if you apply, there's a possibility, strong possibility, you're not going to win it. If you don't apply, there's a definite possibility you're not going to win it. So don't count yourself out. And even if you don't win it, what you do come out with is just one hell of an amazing graduate school application that can be used anywhere in the US, anywhere in the world. Because one of the processes of applying for all of these scholarships, but in Marshall in particular, is that the thought process you have to go through in order to apply for this scholarship will give you a grounding and essays and all kinds of things that you may not have thought about before you start trying to apply for med school, law school, whatever the school is that you're wanting to do in the US. So looking at it as an opportunity to develop that kind of, and it's early. So the deadline for this is around the 1st of October. Your graduate school applications don't need to go in until after Christmas. So you have this great application. So looking at it as an opportunity to really have a thought process as well as applying for these amazing scholarships, all of them, Rhodes, Marshall, Gates, Fulbright, Truman, whatever it is, you know, it's worth doing because even if you don't win, there is a benefit to you. So selection criteria. Here are 3 criteria, and this is all on our website. This is nothing new. You can look this up on our website. What are we looking in academic merit? Well, obviously you have to have a GPA of 3.7 or above. That's our minimum. But what else are we looking at? So we're looking at your academic background. If you want to study physics, have you done any physics at undergraduate level? If you haven't, then why are you trying to apply for a physics degree? Do you know, have you done the research about where the best places in the UK are to do your study? Have you looked beyond Oxford and Cambridge? Have you really done your research? Or have you just thought, sorry guys, I know you're going to Cambridge, but you're going for good things at Cambridge. But have you really looked around and really confirmed that those are the best places for you to go? What is the quality of the program of study? Does it make sense? Or are you wanting to do basket weaving in the UK? So if you're doing basket weaving, don't apply. If you are serious about applying to the UK and doing something that is going to enhance your future aspirations, go for it, apply. And also the quality and breadth of recommendations. So we need you to have 3 academic recommendations. So this is where you start thinking about that. Who's going to write those letters? Who are the best people? Who are the people that you can start talking about your aspirations? Who are the people that are really going to be able to write about you and who you are and what you aspire to do and their views of your academic ability and your leadership qualities, all of those things. So really start to think about that because it's important. And it's important not just for Marshall, but for anything else that you do, that you have these advocates in your career who are willing to write these kinds of letters. The next one is ambassadorial potential. And no, we don't mean that you're going to go on to be a diplomat. So, number 10 Downing Street, Marshall Scholars. There's a lot of these kinds of pictures. What do you know about US-UK relations? You know what? There's no excuse not for knowing this stuff. There's this thing called Google. There are all these British newspapers that you can get onto and read. The BBC website's free. Really understanding and trying to read around not only general politics stuff. You know, nobody expects you to understand Brexit. None of us understand Brexit, so it's fine. You don't need to understand that. But actually, not only do you know about your field, what are the things that are happening in your field in US-UK relationships? What's different about your field in the UK? Do we have different regulations? Are we doing different things? Did you know, for example, if you're a forensic archaeologist, in the UK we have medieval bodies stored that can be used for study, whereas in the US there are all kinds of rules about that because of Native American burial grounds and the chances that somebody may be Native American. So there's all these opportunities to study disease, all kinds of different things in forensic anthropology, archaeology and anthropology in the UK that you wouldn't be able to do here. So it's knowing those sorts of things and what are the topical things that are going on in your field in the UK. Are your extracurriculars transferable? What would you do in the UK that you're doing here? Can you play the sports? Would you do a different sport? Do you want to learn a different sport? Do you want to learn cricket? You know, you could. The ability to engage others and to talk about who you are, what you believe in, your subject, not just about your academic subject, but the other things and why it matters, what you want to do. And the ability to be able to talk one-on-one with somebody and to talk to a whole room of people and engage them, which I'm probably not doing well at the moment. And then also that confidence and ability to seize the opportunities, because, you know, you need to take those opportunities everywhere you are, and in an application you need to show how you found those opportunities and sort them out. So leadership. Obviously, you need to be able to deliver results. You need to have a strength of purpose. You need creativity. You need self-awareness. If you are a leader, and we don't mean just student government leaders, we mean leaders in any field, in any way, how have you changed things? How have you tried to make things better? What worked? What didn't work? How did you learn from that experience? If you did something and it didn't work, did you learn something? Are you aware of what your limitations are? Did I do it? Did we do it? All of those things are really important to think about in your application, really thinking about who you are as a leader and what you want to be as a leader in the future. Demonstrating courage, similar. So this is the value of the scholarship, more or less. It varies a little because tuition fees cost different amounts. But that is more or less what it is. It was all funded by the British government. It's a gift from the British government. So route maps. So you can do, there are two types of scholarship. There's a one-year scholarship and a two-year scholarship. For the one-year scholarship, you have to do a 12-month master's. So you need to watch out for those tricky masters at Oxford and Cambridge that are only 9 months long. They're not allowed on the one-year scholarship, and you can't extend it. So think about the 1 year. If the 1 year works for you because you don't want to delay other things that you want to carry on for, that's great. But you can't extend it. So if you choose the 1 year and you get to the UK and decide that actually you made a mistake and you really wanted to stay for longer, then you'll have to do that on other funding. So really think about whether the 1 year is for you or whether the 2 year is. And the 2 year is more flexible in some ways because you can do 2 1-year masters at the same or different universities. You can do 1 2-year master, or you can do the first 2 years of a PhD. So you can do what we call a taught masters, which is one that has a series of courses and a dissertation at the end, or you can do a research masters, which is completely no taught elements at all. So no courses, you just research. And you can do and there is a possible 3rd year funding. So if you are ready to do a PhD and you're qualified to do a PhD, and one of the things I will talk about a little bit about choosing courses in the UK is to read the eligibility criteria and accept the eligibility criteria. If a PhD program says you need a master's to do it, you probably need a master's to do it. It's not something you can talk your way out of. So being aware of what the requirements are, but we do fund 3rd years as well. So you can complete a PhD. PhDs are generally 3 or 3.5 to 4 years in the UK. So how do you choose a UK university? So you need to do your research, and there's really a wealth of information out there, and I'll talk a little bit about the Mary's method when we get a little bit further along. But really think about it, talk to your professors, talk to other people, talk to alum. Go to that board that's in the library, look up the names of the Marshall Scholars who are on that board, and then contact them and ask them. They're all, you know, they're all available, they're all around. Some of them are actually teach here. There are, I think we have 4 Marshall alum that teach at Duke University. There's a challenge, find them. But, you know, make sure that you really do your research. Make sure that you know that what you want to do is the best of what there is to do. So talk to UK professors, especially if you want to do a research course. You should be talking to professors. You should have identified somebody you want to work with, because that's actually a very key part of research, is the relationship with the supervisor in the UK. I've already said it, consider schools outside of London and Oxbridge. There are so many amazing universities in the UK, and there are so many different programmes beyond Oxford and Cambridge, so don't limit your search. You have to write an academic plan in your application, so really think about that carefully. Think about, do you have the right background? Why do you want to do if you're doing 2 1-years, why do those 2 1-years work together? Why is that the program that will work for you? Because your future aspirations will, will help develop them. And unlike any of the others, well, I suppose Fulbright you can, but it's more limited. You can apply to any British university to do a Marshall. And that's a really exciting opportunity. So these are our partnership schools. So sometimes this confuses people, because these are the schools that actually we work with and they waive tuition fees. So we have partnerships with all of these schools. Most of them are what we are called Russell Group universities, so they're the top research universities in the UK. You'll also see a whole load of Oxford and Cambridge colleges in there. But Marshall scholarships are available at any British university, not just these. But if you find a program in one of these, then you should put it as your first choice, if that's where you want to go. There's a course search on the Marshall Scholarship website that's a really helpful course search. And if you put a word into the course search, it will help you identify programs that are available in the UK. So you can put in pretty much anything. Can't guarantee there'll be a course with that word in it, but if there is, it will come up on this search. And these are all Marshall eligible courses, so that works. And then there's a whole load of other resources, and this is where the Mary's method comes in. So the Mary's method says that when you're looking for UK courses, you can start by looking at the Times Higher PDF. This is what we call in the UK the ref. And this is how, so universities in the UK are funded by the British government. Imagine that, money from the British government going into universities. And how they decide which universities get which amount of money is this exercise called the ref. This document, last updated in 2014, will tell you what universities, subject by subject, are, where they're ranked for their research. Now, it is not definitive, but it will give you an idea. If I were looking to do a particular course, it's where I would start. I would probably look at the first top 10, 15 in each of the lists of my subject, and then I would go through those universities to see what they offer. And I would use the course search that I used earlier. There are also these resources. There's the Complete University Guide, there's the Guardian University Guide, there's the Times Higher results for the National Student Survey. Most of these are targeted at undergraduate courses, but they will give you a good flavour of the university and how students feel about the universities. And there's also the British Council Study UK site as well. So there are lots of resources out there to really investigate around the universities. Also, British universities send representatives to the US all the time. So watch out on the websites for the universities you're interested in to see if they're coming somewhere near, because they travel around the US all the time. So here is the selection process. So Babs has already said that there's a much earlier deadline for Duke, so don't wait until the first week of October.
August 14th is the Duke deadline. No, August 9th. Sorry, August 9th.
Don't hand it in on the 14th, it'll be too late. So the first week of October is our deadline, the main deadline, but you need to make sure, well, actually we're going to have a split deadline this year, one for students and one for the institutions. It will only be 2 days different. And you need to submit your application in time for Duke to be able to do your endorsement letter. If you leave it till the last minute, they're not going to have enough time. We shortlist at the end of it. It's a very quick turnaround, and Matt knows all about this. He had to go through it the first time this year. We shortlist by the end of October. We interview within the first 2 weeks of November, and we make our announcements in the first week of December. So you can see that whole process is very concise, and it's an awful lot of work for our committees who do that. The interviews are 30 minutes long. We will pay for travel in the US. We won't pay if you are traveling from overseas. And all the committee members are American, and most are Marshall alumni, but not all. And there will always be somebody in your committee who's ready to ask you difficult questions about your subject. But be prepared to answer anything, and I will let the two over there who've been through it tell you all about that in a moment. So, and I'm kind of running through this because PowerPoints are kind of PowerPoints, and ultimately it's probably way more interesting to ask questions and for them to be answered than to run through this. And this will be available. I'll make sure that this is available for you. So here you go. This is a Marshall Scholar. This is a Marshall Scholar. This is a Royal. She's an American Royal. This is 2 weeks ago. So you might get to meet royalty. And you might even, more importantly, get to meet Larry the cat, who is the number 10 cat. Or, oh no, you're never going to meet the hashtag unofficial Marshall cat because he doesn't come to work. But watch out on Twitter for hashtag unofficial Marshall cat. He had a tweet out earlier for Valentine's Day. He wasn't very romantic. And here is all our contacts. You can follow us on Instagram. We have Marshall Mondays on Instagram, and we have the Twitter accounts of both Marshall and UK and US. So that's the British Embassy one. This is us. This is mostly me. I'll be tweeting about Duke later. It'll all be good. And then obviously tomorrow it won't, because I'm going to UNC Chapel Hill. So, you know, I have to change my allegiance. Go Devils. And that is pretty much it from me from the point of view of the presentation. I'm going to ask the two... Yes, sorry.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick
Sure.
question? Did you say that if you've taken GCSEs, you're ineligible?
If you have done GCSEs, you're ineligible. GCSEs in the UK. Okay, yeah. If you've done GCSEs elsewhere. So I think it would be good to bring up our Scholars-elect. Perhaps they can tell you a little bit about their application process and the interviews, because luckily I don't have to do those. They've done them, and they've done them in the recent past. So, and then I will answer questions. You can probably just send.
Oh, okay.
I think it's probably easier.
Yeah, probably. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming out today. It actually is really nice to see so many Duke students interested in the Marshall Scholarship. I haven't even got to the UK yet, and I'm already so inspired by it. My name is Julie Uchitel. I'm a neuroscience and French double major, and I'll be studying pediatrics at Cambridge next year.
Hey, I'm Shomik. I'm studying mechanical engineering here, and I'll be getting an MPhil in material science next year.
Yeah, so our application process, should we just do maybe one by one? Yeah? Okay. I'll just say that, to be completely honest, Marshall was not on my radar until August of last summer, about, what was it, 5 days before the on-campus deadline? Yeah. So the big thing for me going through the application process was I didn't think I was good enough. I had never won a scholarship before. I came from like a inner city public school, and I just kind of thought, well, that's not me. Like, I have research and I'm a part of different organizations and I've studied abroad, but I'm not good enough for something like this. And it really hindered me in thinking through the application process. So the biggest piece of advice I have is don't ever let it be self-doubt that prevents you from applying for something like this. Because doubting yourself, as Mary said earlier, you have a small chance of getting it if you apply, but you have no chance of getting it if you don't apply. So the application process for me took about a very rushed 5 days. Thank goodness my recommenders were so understanding. And I had been applying to Churchill, Fulbright, and Gates Cambridge at the time. For me, it was Cambridge all the way. There's no question. I don't care how I get there. Shomick and I were also both the on-campus nominees for the Churchill Scholarship. So I guess both of us, it was just Cambridge, Cambridge, Cambridge. But the whole reason about Cambridge was the fit of the program. It is about fit when you're applying for this. You're not applying for a Marshall Scholarship to win a Marshall Scholarship. You're applying for a Marshall Scholarship because there is something definitive in the UK that you not only want to do, but must do in order to further your future career and further the relationship between the US and the UK. Wanna jump in?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I think Julie put it really well. Really encourage everyone to apply. A lot of Duke students do a lot of things. And the Marshall Scholarship or other scholarships gives a good chance for you to put a story together. Like, what did you do during your time at Duke, and how are you going to contribute in the future, and why being a Marshall Scholar is important to that goal. I think writing the personal statements, working through the essays gives you a really good chance to reflect on what you've done and what you want to do. I guess we can talk about like interview stuff. Yeah, so I think the interviews is definitely the scariest part, but they're really nice people, so there's nothing to be afraid of. It's really important to do like preparation beforehand, like Google who like Marshall is, what the Marshall Plan was, etc. My interview was like pretty technical, so I had a physicist on my panel, so he asked me a lot of like interesting but technical questions about my research, like what solar thermal power is, like how does a hydrogen fuel cell work, things like that. So it's good to be prepared, like know what you're doing, but in addition, know like the impacts of your work in terms of like policy or science, or like education, because they'll talk about all of these like farther impacts of your work beyond just like the technical research that you're doing. Anything to add?
When they say leadership, that doesn't necessarily mean that you were president of this or vice president of that. Leadership means that you made a definitive change. I would take that into consideration as well. If you look at your resume, if you look upon your experiences and you say to yourself, well, I'm not president of Duke Student Government, I must not be a leader. It's not true. Neither of us are president of Duke Student Government. I don't know. So another thing I would say is, the interview process is not just for them to grill you, to test you how well you know your stuff. It's for them to get to know you and to determine whether they think you are an individual that is A, truly passionate about going to the UK, B, truly knows about the UK, and C, has a clear path of where they want to go. And just another thing, because I keep adding on the tidbits. Ambassadorial potential doesn't mean that you have had to already studied in the UK. That was another concern when I was applying. I am a French major. So my thought was, oh, Marshall, they're going to see French and they're just going to be like, why is she applying to us? But that wasn't the case. So just because you may have studied abroad in a different country, ambassadorial potential is one of those things that's transcendent. It's particularly helpful if you did study in the UK, but as I said again, just because you have studied somewhere that wasn't the UK, that doesn't mean you can't consider this as a possibility.
Thank you. You can they can answer questions too. So I was just going to say 2 more things about the application process. So first of all, you don't have to have studied abroad at all. It's fine if you haven't studied abroad. That's also okay. So 3 things I'm going to say. 1 is, don't put things on the application that you can't answer a question about. And I mean that because that thing that you stuck on there that you thought no one's ever going to notice, that's the thing the committee's going to ask about. And I'm going to use my favourite example, and actually it's a Ted Linebaugh example. So Ted Linebaugh is at UNC, he's a professor at UNC and was the chair of the Atlanta Committee, and I observed their interviews in 2002. and somebody had put on their application that they spoke ancient Norse. You know, you feel pretty safe that you're not going to encounter anybody else that can speak ancient Norse, huh? Well, not if you've met Ted Lambert, are you not? And, you know, luckily this kid did speak ancient Norse. But this is what I mean. Never put something on your application that you're not prepared to answer a question of. If you say you play flamenco guitar, be prepared to be asked about that. If you say anything on your application, and the thing that you thought then no one is ever going to ask you about, that's the thing they're going to ask you about. Did you two have anything that you thought they would answer? Or they didn't ask, or they did ask?
Yeah. I didn't get asked a single question about my French education, and barely any about my neuroscience education, which was pretty surprising because I'm a neuroscience and French major. But
all on her application.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it's something that I didn't intentionally put on my application. It's something on my transcript. So freshman year, I took a class called Kinship Self-Culture. And like I haven't thought about that class in like 3 years, and they brought it up in the review. I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. But yeah, I like kind of like threw out some vocabulary terms and got through it. But yeah.
Yeah. Rogue classes on your transcript that have nothing to do with anything else. Yeah, that's something else they're going to ask a question about. So be prepared. And actually be prepared. If you don't know the answer to something, that's also fine. It's how they get to know you, is how you deal with those questions that you don't know the answers to. You know, if you can kind of make an educated guess or say, you know, I'm really not sure, that's fine too. You don't need to be the world expert yet. That comes later. Also, there's a word that I really hate. It's called unique. Is it really unique? Is that program you've identified really the only one of that program in the entire UK? If it is, great, use the word unique. If it's not, it shouldn't be there. Because unique is overused and kind of an irritating. Also, we know that Winston Churchill talked about and coined the special relationship. You don't need to put that in your application. We know that. So, questions for me, for the Scholars-elect? Oh yeah, you also as Marshall Scholars, you always have to ask questions. Okay. Yeah, there's one at the back of the room. No? Yep, yep. Yes.
So
Yeah.
I was wondering, since you said you weren't asked about your neuroscience or your French, and those are both of your academic majors, what did they ask?
Oh, that is a great question. The first question was, what is your second choice program? And I kind of didn't like that question, so I answered it with what my first choice program was. And then another question, a lot of it was about my research. A lot of it was about the direction I wanted to take with child rights. A lot of it was applying child rights to real world problems. For some context, I'm writing an article with a pediatric association on child rights. And that was on my application. And since I'm the first author on it, of course they were gonna dig into that. Another question I got asked was essentially, why should we invest in you? Why do other people invest in you? Another one was, are you pro-life or pro-choice, and why, and how would you deal with that in the neonatology setting in which you will be working? So they're very clever and they're very creative. Everything pertains to you. OSIF does a great job of preparing you. We do mock interviews. But at the same time, you just have to be on your feet and you have to be genuine. Above all, genuine. Jane told me during my mock interview, Julie, you look like you're performing. This is ridiculous. And I think that was the best thing she could have told me, because going into my real interview, I was 100% myself. I spoke from my heart, and I think they could sense that.
I think that's important to think about in your application. Don't be someone you're not. We want to know who you are. We want to hear your voice. And that's important. I mean, that's really important in Rhodes, because that's why Rhodes won't let anybody near your personal statement, is because they want to hear your voice. You know, if you worked, I've used this example several times in the last week. If you worked washing dishes through your career, your college career, in order to earn money, put it in your application. Don't edit yourself. You know, we want to know who you are, what challenges you have faced, And everybody's faced challenges in one way or another, but who are you? And as much of that in your paper and on your... So the thing is, no, they didn't ask anything about your French, but they did ask about it. It just didn't ask you in a direct way. And I think that's the thing. And because most of that stuff was on your transcript and in your application. So they didn't need to know that unless it was something quirky that you'd done that wasn't quite the same as all the other things. But actually they are asking about it just in a different way. And what they're wanting is a conversation. I think, Matt, you'd agree, having sat through, that they really love a conversation. And sometimes that interview won't go the way they planned because they got into a conversation about something and then they're just so interested in that conversation they will let that run. So, you know, that's an important thing to bear in mind. And it really isn't any point asking anybody what they were asked because chances are you're not going to be asked the same thing. There was a question somewhere at the front. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you decide whether to apply in this district or your home?
Do you want to take this? Yeah. I guess we can alternate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Babs told them. Answer the question. Babs told them.
And there's a really good reason for that. Basically, if you look at the map of the Atlanta region, we draw, which is the region that Duke would be in, we draw many of the Duke students from that region. And so we have a lot of applicants in that region. It's much better for everyone to go from their home region so that we spread Duke across the country and you're not competing with your fellow Duke students as much. So we always ask you to apply in your home region.
And put another way, any Duke student from that region has no choice in the matter.
Right.
So the students that have a choice, we ask to pick the other one.
And public schools in those states are not the strongest in the country for the North Carolina area. So.
But the other thing is that you'll notice that the regions are all different sizes, and they understand that with the number of scholarships that are given in those regions. They understand how many applications, and so help us work it out that way.
Okay. Yeah.
What was your process for looking for programs to apply to and even identifying potential recent vectors?
You go first.
You go first.
Okay. Yeah. So I looked at the find a course thing that you had before, and the rankings that the ref was also really useful. Yeah. So this one and the ref were the two things I looked at. I knew I wanted to do either mechanical engineering or material science. So I was looking at.
It's all right, I'll find it. You keep talking.
Yeah. So I was looking at faculty from those two departments, and just like I emailed a couple of them, and so I emailed a couple of them, and then they emailed back, and we like talked over Skype to see if it was a good fit. So that's definitely useful as well.
So you can see I'm scanning through this quickly, but you can sort of see, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go, we were talking about the top 10, and you'll notice there's a school not there that you might have thought would be there. And that's fine. But, you know, look at all these amazing schools that aren't Oxbridge. You know, Manchester and Birmingham and Leeds and Sheffield, you know, there are some amazing places, again. And that's why this is important, because you may not know that. And this gives you an idea.
We have a link to that on our website. If you look at the Marshall page on our website, you will find a link to the rep. And it's also on the Marshall website.
It is on the Marshall website. And here is the find a course in the UK thing, if I can get it to go. And so we could do and so on and so forth. So all of this is here and ready for you to use.
It also shows which degree, which is useful.
Yeah,
like,
so it'll give you different,
course.
But interesting with materials, you can already see the range. There are engineers, there's arts, there's book history and material culture. Who knew? It's amazing the stuff that's in here. So, what about you?
I did the exact same thing. I used the course finder, and then I also went on the spreadsheet, and then I looked at institutions, and then I have a very specific focus, pediatric neurology. So it was pretty easy once I got to an institution to look at the faculty and say, this is the direction of my research, and or this isn't. Who I'm working with next year is actually doing the research I did before at UPenn. So it was a good fit in that respect, and similar to Shomik, send them an email. I sent emails, heard back from some people, didn't hear back from others, talked over Skype. Yeah.
Any other questions? So I would say that the Twitter feed is also on our, and this is quite a good one to follow. So this is, I'm not going to sign in, but there is a hashtag I'm a Marshall. I hate that. Has no apostrophe in it. It upsets me every time I see it. I am a Marshall. But there's also hashtag be a Marshall, so do follow those. The Alumni Association has these hashtag Marshall Mondays, and they talk about scholars, and also the hashtag Meet the Marshalls, which is the new class. There's 2 of those go out every Friday from the embassy. The Marshall account is way more eclectic. As I said, hashtag unofficial Marshall Cat tweeted earlier, let's see, this week. There we go. And yes, he does exist. He is real. And obviously we have our astronaut. And if you want to learn some more about our astronaut on the Marshall Scholar website, the alumni website, which is Marshall Scholar, there is an amazing film. I think it's Scholars. Yeah, so this is our alumni website. And they have hidden it. There's also a whole series of blogs from our current scholars. Here we go. No, oh, there we go. Oh, it's going to play automatically. We can watch. Why don't I end? Well, not end, but I'm going to play you quickly.
Yeah.
Let me pause that. Hang on 1 sec, and then we will end with the astronaut.
So a quick question for the scholars themselves. How did were you considering schools, graduate programs here in the States? How did that factor into your decision as to applying abroad?
Yeah, so I'm applying for PhD programs now, and then hoping to defer for after.
Okay, so you're doing the master's and then going into hopefully PhD.
Yeah, yeah.
I was planning on taking 1 gap year and then applying to medical school as an MD PhD candidate. But then there's been a lot of perhaps I may be transferring my master's to a PhD after I finish my first year master's. So I was also looking for a 1-year potentially degree, potentially just doing research here at Duke for a year, and then came upon the Marshall and with a lot of convincing applied.
And then follow up for Charlotte. So did you consider master's programs here stateside? I know you were planning PhD programs here, but as far as a master's program in engineering, here?
No, so I definitely want to do research. So I was looking for PhD programs, and usually if you do a PhD, they give you a master's as well. So I was just looking for PhD programs. I'm still only looking for PhD programs afterwards. Yeah.
Just something I wanted to clarify. We're both doing masters as a part of Marshall, but they're research masters. There's something called an MPhil that is a research master's. So we're both going to be doing only research next year. The year after, I'm doing a taught course. But if research is your interest and not taught, the UK has this. I know it's not something that really exists in the US, but it's something to keep in the back of your mind.
Other questions? Again, our process will have you ending on August the 9th. And it'll all be laid out. We'll put the exact schedule on our website beginning on March 1st. We also, let me give a plug that Saturday at 1 o'clock we'll be talking to the warden of Rhodes House. Will be at USIF in the Smith Warehouse, and we'd love to have you there. So that's on our website as well. And we'll be talking about what it is to apply for a Rhodes Scholarship, okay?
Also on the handouts in the back.
Yeah, on the handouts in the back. So
let's hear a little bit from Anne.
One of the best pieces of advice that I got.
a little louder.
Yeah, it's on the computer. As loud as it goes. Yeah, because it's coming out of this. Oh. It's because it's pressing. I'm not going to be. So this, for some reason, this version of the film does this. So I'm going to encourage you all to go and watch it on the website. Or maybe it'll do better in the smaller version. I'm going to encourage you all to watch this. And instead, because, you know, it is worth watching. I think she's really inspirational. And she talks about math in a way that I think shows the real thing. I'm going to stop her talking now. And she is really cool. You can follow her on Twitter. She took an elf on the shelf to the International Space Station, and he got up to all kinds of no good up till Christmas, which I thought was hilarious.
So what did she study?
Her first year was aeronautical engineering at the University of Bath, and in her second year she did international relations at the University of Bristol. University of Bath is one of the leading aeronautical engineering universities in the UK, actually probably in the world. She also played rugby, and she actually played at a professional level in the UK. She's West Point graduate, so she went on back to serve. She became a helicopter pilot, she became a test pilot, and in this film she'll talk about testing a helicopter and going up to a certain height. And she'd had to do all the calculations about when it was safe, and she talks about the fact that she was on the way up, and she thinks, I did use the sine and not the cosine. And she talks about the reality of maths, but she's pretty amazing. And you know, she is the mother to a 5-year-old child, and is going to be on the space station for the next 6 months. So follow her too. And I still think it's. I also know a dinosaur guy. He's really cool too. He wrote The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs. You may have come across the book. If you haven't, read it. His name is Steve Brasate. He's amazing. He's the one person I can guarantee everybody will turn up for a talk about. If I bring him in the room, nobody really cares about Marshall anymore. They just want to ask about the Tyrannosaurus Rex. So, you know, it makes me really cool with my nephews. My nephews are 6 and 5, and they will ask. They think I know everybody. So when the World Cup was going on, they asked me if I knew Harry Kane. Harry Kane was the captain of the England team. They just assumed that because I know so many people that clearly I knew him too. Sadly, I don't. Anyway, thank you so much for giving us your time here, and I hope that we will see some of you applying, or all of you applying, and apply and come to the UK. And if you don't win a Marshall, come to the UK anyway.